You are born in darkness, not the gentle darkness of a nursery, but the deep, suffocating blackness of a hollow tree trunk 30 feet above the ground. Your mother sits above you, a massive shadow with talons that could crush your skull without effort. She doesn't look down at you with affection. She looks at you like you're a problem she has to solve. Your first breath burns. The air is thin up here, and your lungs aren't ready for it. You don't cry like other birds might. Instead, you make a soft hissing sound, like steam escaping from a broken pipe. Your mother shifts slightly, and for a moment, her weight presses down on you. You can't move, you can barely breathe. This is your welcome to the world. Next to you lies your sibling. They hatched 2 days before you did, which in owl terms might as well be 2 years. They're bigger, stronger, and they've already figured out the most important rule of survival. Eat first, or don't eat at all. When your mother drops a chunk of mouse into the nest, your sibling doesn't hesitate. They lunge forward, swallowing as much as they can before you even realize food has arrived. You try to compete, but your neck is too weak to stretch properly. Your beak opens and closes uselessly, while your sibling devours everything within reach. Your mother watches this competition with complete indifference. She doesn't intervene. She doesn't make sure you get your share. If you can't fight for food, you don't deserve to survive. That's the lesson, and it starts on day 1. Your father is out there somewhere in the darkness, hunting. He's been flying since sunset, scanning the ground with eyes that can spot a mouse from a quarter mile away. His hearing is so precise, he can pinpoint a heartbeat under 6 inches of snow. But even with all that skill, feeding a family of owls is brutal work. Every meal requires perfect execution, and perfect execution doesn't always happen. Sometimes he returns with nothing. Sometimes he brings back prey that's too big to fit through the entrance of your hollow tree. Sometimes he gets into territorial disputes with other owls and comes back bloodied and empty-tailed. When that happens, nobody eats. Your mother doesn't have backup food stored away. There's no safety net. If your father fails to hunt, the family starves. By your 2nd week, you've learned to recognize the sound of his approach. His wings make a distinctive whooshing noise as he glides through the branches. When you hear it, your body tenses with anticipation. Food might be coming or it might not. The uncertainty is constant, gnawing at you like hunger itself. Your sibling has grown significantly larger than you. They've claimed the best spot in the nest, closest to where your mother usually drops food. They've learned to spread their wings wide to block your access, forcing you to scramble around the edges of the hollow just to compete. Sometimes they step on you, not out of malice, but because you're simply in the way. Your mother still doesn't intervene. This isn't cruelty, it's education. The world outside this tree is full of creatures that want to kill you, and if you can't handle competition from your own sibling, you definitely can't handle what's waiting out there. Every day you survive in this nest is a test, and every test is pass or fail. Your first real growth spurt happens around 3 weeks. Your body doubles in size almost overnight, but your coordination doesn't keep up. Your legs are too long, your wings are too big, and your head feels impossibly heavy. You stumble around the hollow like you're drunk, constantly bumping into the walls. Your sibling, meanwhile, has started exercising. They flap their wings in short bursts, building muscle and testing their strength. They practice grabbing things with their talons, squeezing down on pieces of bark and bone fragments left over from meals. They're preparing for something you don't understand yet. Then one morning, your sibling isn't there anymore. You wake up to find the hollow emptier, quieter. Your mother sits alone at the entrance, staring out into the forest. There's no explanation, no farewell. Your sibling simply moved on to the next phase of their life, leaving you behind. Now all the food comes to you. For the first time since hatching, you don't have to fight for every scrap. Your mother drops entire mice in front of you, and you eat until your crop bulges with meat. The relief is overwhelming, but it doesn't last long. Within days, you realize what this means. Your turn is coming. Your wings are getting stronger. The hollow that once felt spacious now feels cramped. When you stretch, your wingtips touch both sides of the tree. Your talons have grown sharp and powerful, capable of gripping bark so tightly it takes effort to let go. Your mother watches these developments with what might be satisfaction, though it's hard to tell with owls. The first time you venture to the entrance of the hollow, the sight nearly knocks you backward. The ground is impossibly far below, and the trees stretch in every direction like a maze with no exit. The wind hits your face with a force you've never experienced. Everything about the outside world feels hostile and overwhelming, but there's something else too, something that pulls at you from deep in your chest. An instinct you don't fully understand yet, but can't ignore. You want to be out there. You want to spread your wings and feel the air beneath them. You want to hunt, to kill, to claim territory of your own. Your mother seems to sense this change in you. She starts leaving for longer periods, sometimes disappearing for entire nights. When she returns, she doesn't always bring food. Sometimes she just perches at the entrance and stares at you expectantly, as if waiting for you to make a decision. The hollow is becoming a prison. Your body is ready for flight, but your mind isn't. Every time you look out at the forest, you feel a mixture of excitement and terror that threatens to paralyze you. What if you fall? What if you can't find food? What if another owl attacks you? What if you get lost and can't find your way back? These questions circle through your head like vultures, but they don't change the fundamental truth. Staying in the hollow is no longer an option. You've outgrown this place, and your mother's patience is wearing thin. She brought you this far, but the rest of the journey is yours to make. One evening, as the sun disappears behind the trees and the forest comes alive with the sounds of nocturnal hunters, you make your choice. You waddle to the edge of the hollow, look down at the dizzying drop below, and step out into empty air. For a split second, you're falling. The ground rushes up toward you with terrifying speed. Then your wings catch the air, and suddenly you're not falling anymore. You're flying. Your first flight is clumsy and panicked, more controlled crash than graceful glide, but you're airborne. You manage to land on a branch about 20 feet from your birth tree. Your talons lock onto the bark automatically, gripping so tightly you wonder if you'll ever be able to let go. Your heart pounds against your ribs as you look around at your new world. Everything looks different from out here. The forest floor, which seemed impossibly distant from the hollow, is now close enough that you can make out individual leaves and fallen branches. Other trees tower around you, some hollow and suitable for nesting, others solid and useless. The air carries 1,000 different scents: prey, predators, territory markers from other owls, the musk of mammals you've never encountered. Your mother appears on a branch nearby. She doesn't congratulate you or offer encouragement. She just watches as you struggle to maintain your balance on the unfamiliar perch. This is another test, and you're taking it alone. A sound catches your attention, a rustling in the undergrowth below. Something small is moving through the dead leaves, making just enough noise to attract your notice. Your head swivels toward the sound with mechanical precision, and your eyes lock onto the source, a mouse completely unaware of your presence. This is it, your first hunt. Everything your body has been preparing for comes down to this moment. You launch yourself from the branch, wings spread wide, talons extended. The mouse looks up just as you arrive, but it's far too late. Your talons pierce its body, and its struggling stops almost immediately. You've killed for the first time, and it feels nothing like you expected. There's no triumph, no sense of accomplishment, just hunger and the mechanical act of tearing flesh with your beak. The mouse is warm and fresh, and you eat every scrap, leaving nothing for scavengers. When you look up, your mother is gone. You're truly on your own now, and the forest stretches endlessly in every direction. Somewhere out there, your sibling is facing the same challenges, learning the same harsh lessons. But you can't worry about them anymore. You have your own territory to claim, your own survival to secure. The night is still young, and you're already hungry again. One mouse isn't enough to sustain a growing owl. You need to hunt again and again and again. Every night for the rest of your life, you'll need to kill to survive. There are no days off, no safety nets, no second chances. But right now, perched on this branch with the taste of fresh blood in your beak, you feel something you've never experienced before: power. You're no longer the helpless chick fighting for scraps in a hollow tree. You're a predator, and this forest is full of prey. The real challenge starts now. Your first week of independence is a brutal education. Every night brings new lessons that your hollow tree never taught you. The forest has rules, and breaking them means death. You learn the hard way that not all prey is easy prey. A rat fights back, scratching deep gouges across your face before you manage to subdue it. A rabbit kicks with legs powerful enough to break your ribs if you're not careful with your grip. Even mice can bite, and their tiny teeth carry diseases that could kill you slowly from the inside. You discover that hunting isn't just about finding prey. It's about finding the right prey at the right time, in the right place. A mouse in open ground is a gift. A mouse near thick brush is a gamble. A mouse that's already being stalked by a fox is a death trap. You have to read the entire scene before you commit to an attack, because once you're in the air, there's no backing out. Your hearing becomes your most valuable asset. You can detect a vole's heartbeat from 50 yards away, distinguish between the footsteps of different species, and identify which direction prey is moving just by the way twigs break under their feet. But this gift comes with a curse. You also hear every predator that might be hunting you. The soft pad of a lynx stalking through the underbrush, the rustle of a hawk settling onto a branch above you, the distant howl of wolves coordinating a pack hunt. You're not just a hunter anymore, you're also prey. This realization hits you on your 10th night of freedom when something massive crashes through the branches above your head. It's a great horned owl, an adult male 3 times your size, with talons like meat hooks. His territory overlaps with the hunting ground you've been using, and he's not happy about the intrusion. He doesn't give you a warning call or a territorial display. He just attacks. His talons rake across your back as you dive toward the ground, desperate to escape. You crash land in a pile of dead leaves, roll to your feet, and scramble toward the nearest tree. Behind you, the giant owl's wings beat the air like thunder as he prepares for another pass. You make it to the trunk and climb as fast as your talons will carry you, but he's faster. He slams into the tree just below you, bark exploding in all directions. His beak snaps inches from your leg. You keep climbing higher and higher until you're in branches too thin to support his weight. He perches below you and waits, knowing that eventually you'll have to come down. For 3 hours, You cling to those swaying branches while he watches from below. Your muscles cramp, your grip weakens, hunger gnaws at your stomach, but you don't move because moving means dying. Finally, just before dawn, he gives up and flies away to find easier prey. That encounter teaches you something crucial. The forest is divided into territories, and every territory has an owner. Some owners are willing to share. Others will kill you for stepping on their land. Learning to tell the difference becomes a matter of survival. You start paying attention to scent marks on trees, scratch patterns on bark, and the way certain areas feel empty of prey. These are the danger zones, claimed by owls stronger and more experienced than you. You hunt around the edges of these territories, taking what scraps you can find without triggering a war you can't win. But this strategy has its own problems. The unclaimed hunting grounds are unclaimed for good reasons. The prey is scarce, the terrain is difficult, or there are other dangers that make the area undesirable. You spend entire nights searching for food and find nothing but empty burrows and cold trails. Your body weight drops, your flight becomes labored, your reflexes slow. Desperation makes you careless. You start taking risks you know you shouldn't. You hunt in broad daylight when you should be roosting. You chase prey into territory you know belongs to other predators. You ignore the warning signs that tell you a particular area is dangerous. That's how you end up face to face with a red-tailed hawk on a snowy morning in late November. You're both after the same rabbit, and neither of you is willing to back down. The hawk is a daytime hunter built for speed and aggression in open spaces. You're a night hunter built for stealth and precision in dense cover. This fight is happening on his terms, not yours. He strikes first, diving from above with talons extended. You dodge to the side, but his momentum carries him past you, and he wheels around for another attack. You try to gain altitude, but your wings are tired from a long night of unsuccessful hunting. He's faster and fresher, and he uses that advantage ruthlessly. His talons lock onto your wing, and for a moment you're both tumbling through the air in a deadly embrace. You bite at his neck while he tries to tear your wing apart. The ground rushes up towards you both, and at the last second you break apart and crash land separately. You hit the snow hard enough to drive the breath from your lungs. The hawk lands more gracefully and immediately launches himself at you again. This time, you're ready. As he swoops down, you roll onto your back and thrust your talons upward. He flies directly into them, impaling himself on your razor-sharp claws. The fight ends instantly. He thrashes for a few seconds, then goes still. You push his body off your talons and stand up, breathing heavily. Your wing aches where his talons tore through muscle and skin, but you can still fly. The rabbit that started this whole conflict has long since disappeared, but now you have a different meal. Hawk tastes different from mouse, stronger and more bitter, but it's fresh protein, and that's all that matters. As you eat, you notice something troubling. Your injured wing isn't healing properly. The tears in the flight membrane are too deep, and infection has set in around the edges. Flying becomes painful, then difficult, then nearly impossible. Within a week, you're essentially grounded. A flightless owl is a dead owl. You can't hunt effectively from the ground. You can't escape from predators. You can't reach safe roosting spots during the day. Every moment of every day becomes a struggle against extinction. You adapt the only way you can. You become a scavenger. You learn to track other predators and steal their kills when they're not looking. You discover that humans sometimes leave dead animals on roads, struck by their metal beasts and abandoned. You raid garbage containers near human settlements, picking through their waste for anything edible, It's a humiliating existence for a creature that was born to be an apex predator, but it keeps you alive while your wing slowly, painfully heals. The infection eventually clears up. The torn membrane grows back together. Your flight muscles, weakened by weeks of disuse, gradually regain their strength. By spring, you're airborne again. Your wing isn't perfect. There's a slight hitch in your flight pattern that will never fully disappear, but it's functional. You can hunt, you can escape, you can reclaim your place in the forest hierarchy. The months of scavenging have taught you valuable lessons about survival that well-fed owls never learn. You've also grown larger and stronger during your recovery. The constant search for food has built muscle and endurance. Your talons are sharper from gripping rough surfaces. Your beak is more powerful from tearing through tough carrion. You're no longer the inexperienced juvenile who got run out of territory by a bigger owl. You're becoming something more dangerous. That spring, you encounter another young owl in what you've started thinking of as your hunting ground. She's about your age, maybe a little younger, and she's making the same mistakes you made months ago. She hunts carelessly, ignores territorial markers, and takes unnecessary risks. Under normal circumstances, you might drive her away or ignore her completely, but something about her catches your attention. Maybe it's the way she moves through the trees with unconscious grace. Maybe it's her hunting technique, which is different from yours but equally effective. Maybe it's just loneliness after months of solitary existence. Whatever the reason, instead of attacking her, you find yourself following her. She notices you, of course. Owls are too alert to be stalked for long. But instead of fleeing or fighting, she simply acknowledges your presence and continues hunting. You settle onto a nearby branch and watch as she systematically works her way through a grove of oak trees, checking every hollow and crevice for signs of prey. Her technique is methodical, where yours is opportunistic. She doesn't rely on luck or chance encounters. She hunts like she's conducting a survey, covering every inch of territory in a logical pattern. It's effective but slow, and you find yourself growing impatient as the night drags on without a kill. Then she freezes. Her head tilts at an impossible angle, focusing on something you can't detect. She launches herself from her perch with perfect precision, disappears into a tangle of undergrowth, and emerges a moment later with a large rat struggling in her talons. The entire sequence takes less than 10 seconds. You realize you've just witnessed a master class in hunting technique. She heard something you missed, identified it correctly, and executed a perfect strike in conditions that would have challenged you. You're impressed despite yourself. She settles onto a branch to eat her kill, and you notice she's watching you as carefully as you've been watching her. This is a test, though you're not sure what kind. You could try to steal her kill, which would probably start a fight you're not certain you'd win. You could fly away and continue hunting alone. Or you could do something unprecedented in your brief but violent life. You could share territory with another predator. The decision surprises you even as you make it. Instead of challenging her or leaving, you simply resume your own hunting in the same area. You're not hunting together. That's not how owls work. But you're not fighting either. You're coexisting, and that's something new. The arrangement works better than you expected. 2 sets of eyes and ears cover more ground than one. When she flushes prey toward your position, you're ready to intercept it. When your hunting disturbs small animals in her direction, she capitalizes on the opportunity. You're not cooperating exactly, but you're not competing either. As the weeks pass, this uneasy alliance evolves into something more complex. You start timing your hunts to coincide with hers. You roost in trees near where she spends her days. You even begin to recognize her individual call among the dozens of owl voices that echo through the forest each night. Something fundamental shifts during the late spring nights. You're no longer just sharing hunting grounds with her, you're actively seeking her out. When you don't hear her distinctive call echoing through the darkness, you feel an unfamiliar restlessness. When another male owl drifts too close to the territory you've both been using, you find yourself driving him off with a ferocity that surprises you. She notices these changes, and her behavior shifts in response. She starts calling more frequently when you're nearby, a softer vocalization than the harsh territorial screams you're used to hearing. When you respond, she moves closer instead of maintaining the careful distance she once kept. The invisible boundaries between your hunting zones begin to blur and disappear. The courtship begins without either of you consciously deciding to start it. One night, you catch a particularly fat vole, and instead of eating it immediately, you carry it toward the tree where she usually roosts. You land on a nearby branch and hold the prey conspicuously, waiting to see how she'll react. She drops down to a lower branch, close enough that you can see the intricate patterns in her facial disc. For a long moment, neither of you moves. Then she makes a soft clicking sound, almost like purring, and you know she's interested. You hop closer and offer the vole. She takes it delicately from your talons, and the transaction feels more significant than a simple meal exchange. Over the following nights, the ritual repeats and expands. You bring her prey, and she accepts it. She preens your flight feathers when you settle beside her on a branch. You engage in elaborate aerial displays, showing off your flying skills and the power of your recovered wing. She responds with her own demonstrations of agility and hunting prowess. The territory you've been sharing transforms into something you're both actively defending. When a young male ventures into your hunting grounds, you and she attack him simultaneously from different directions. He doesn't stand a chance against your coordinated assault and flees into the night, bloodied and thoroughly discouraged from returning. By early summer, you've chosen a nesting site together, a hollow in an ancient oak tree that's larger and more secure than the cramped space where you hatched. She inspects every inch of the cavity, testing the strength of the walls and the depth of the floor. When she finally settles inside and begins the soft calling that signals her acceptance, you feel something you've never experienced before, a sense of home that isn't just about survival. The mating itself is brief and violent, as it is with all raptors, but the bond it creates runs deeper than the physical act. You're no longer hunting just for yourself. Every kill you make has to feed two bodies, and soon it will need to feed more. The responsibility weighs on you differently than simple hunger ever did. When she lays her first egg, the dynamic between you changes completely. She becomes tied to the nest, unable to hunt for herself during the long incubation period. All the pressure of providing food falls on your shoulders. You hunt with a desperation you haven't felt since your early days of independence, knowing that failure means the death of your mate and your offspring. The forest seems to sense your urgency and responds by hiding its prey more carefully. Mice that once seemed abundant become scarce. Rabbits avoid the areas where you usually find them. Even the rats that live near human settlements seem warier and more difficult to catch. You start hunting during daylight hours, risking encounters with hawks and other daytime predators, because you can't afford to return to the nest empty-taloned. Your mate calls to you from inside the hollow, a plaintive sound that cuts through your chest like a blade. She's hungry, and you're failing to provide for her. The egg she's incubating needs constant warmth, and she can't leave to hunt for herself without risking the life developing inside that fragile shell. You push yourself harder, hunting in territories you know are dangerous, taking risks that could get you killed. A close encounter with a fox costs you several tail feathers. A near miss with a hawk leaves scratches across your back. But you keep bringing food back to the nest, one small victory at a time. The second egg arrives 3 days after the first, and your hunting pressure doubles. Your mate grows thinner despite your efforts, her body giving everything it has to keep the eggs warm and viable. You can see her ribs beneath her feathers when she shifts position in the nest. Her eyes have the hollow look of chronic exhaustion. Then disaster strikes on a rain-soaked night in early July. You're returning to the nest with a freshly caught squirrel when you hear sounds that freeze your blood, the harsh calls of multiple owls converging on your territory. It's a raiding party. 3 juvenile males who've decided to test your defenses while you're away hunting. You drop the squirrel and fly toward the nest as fast as your wings will carry you. Through the trees, you can see them circling the oak tree where your mate is trapped with the eggs. She's calling frantically from inside the hollow, but she can't abandon the nest to fight. If she leaves, the eggs will die from exposure within minutes. The first raider is already at the entrance to the nest when you arrive. You slam into him with every ounce of speed and fury you can muster, driving your talons deep into his back. He screams and tumbles away from the tree, but his 2 companions are already moving to take his place. The fight that follows is unlike anything you've experienced. It's not about territory or hunting rights. It's about survival itself. You're outnumbered 3-1, but you're fighting for something the raiders don't understand, the future of your bloodline. That desperation gives you strength and speed you didn't know you possessed. You wheel and dive, strike and retreat, using the branches of your own nesting tree as weapons and shields. One raider gets too close to a thick branch, and you slam him into it with enough force to crack his wing. He spirals toward the ground, out of the fight. The second raider tries to flank you from above, but you roll inverted and rake your talons across his belly as he passes overhead. The third raider, the one you hit first, has recovered enough to rejoin the battle. Blood streams from the puncture wounds in his back, but he's still dangerous. He and his remaining companion try to coordinate their attacks, one diving while the other climbs, forcing you to defend against threats from multiple directions simultaneously. Your mate's calls from the nest become increasingly frantic. The sounds of battle are driving her toward panic, but she still won't abandon the eggs. Her dedication gives you the strength to fight harder, to take risks that border on suicide. You grapple with one raider in midair, both of you tumbling toward the ground in a deadly embrace of talons and beaks. You break apart just before impact, but the raider isn't as lucky. He hits a fallen log with a sickening crack and doesn't get up. The remaining attacker, seeing his companions defeated, finally decides the fight isn't worth continuing. He flees into the darkness, calling threats over his shoulder that you ignore. The battle is over, but the cost becomes apparent as you settle onto a branch near the nest. Deep cuts across your chest leak blood onto your feathers. Your left wing aches where one of the raiders grabbed it. Exhaustion hits you like a physical weight, and you realize you've been running on pure adrenaline for the past several minutes. Your mate emerges from the nest cavity to inspect your wounds. Her gentle preening helps clean the cuts and stops most of the bleeding, but some injuries are too deep for her ministrations to heal completely. You'll carry the scars from this fight for the rest of your life, permanent reminders of what you're willing to sacrifice for family. The first egg hatches on a humid night in late July. You're away hunting when it happens, but you hear your mate's excited calls echoing through the forest and know immediately what they mean. When you return to the nest with a mouse clutched in your talons, you find her bent over a tiny, helpless creature that looks nothing like the powerful predator it will eventually become. Your first chick is a pathetic thing, blind, nearly featherless, and completely dependent on its parents for survival. It can barely lift its oversized head, and its attempts at calling sound more like squeaking than the fierce vocalizations of adult owls. But when you drop pieces of pre-chewed mouse into its gaping mouth, it swallows eagerly and begs for more. The second egg hatches 2 days later, and suddenly your workload doubles again. 2 chicks means twice the feeding, twice the protection, twice the responsibility. Your mate can leave the nest for short periods now that the eggs have hatched, but the chicks still need constant warmth and supervision. Most of the hunting still falls to you. You develop a routine that revolves entirely around feeding your growing family. Hunt all night, return with prey at dawn, sleep fitfully during the day while your mate takes over chick care, then wake at sunset to hunt again. Your body weight drops as you prioritize feeding your offspring over feeding yourself. Your flight becomes labored as exhaustion accumulates night after night. The chicks grow with alarming speed. Within a week, they've doubled in size and developed a layer of fluffy down that makes them look like small gray clouds with enormous eyes. Their appetite seems limitless. No matter how much food you bring back, they're always ready for more. Their begging calls echo through the forest, advertising the location of your nest to any predator within miles. That vulnerability keeps you constantly on edge. Every sound in the darkness could be a threat. Every shadow could hide a competitor looking to destroy your offspring. You find yourself flying patrol routes around the nesting tree, checking and rechecking for signs of danger. The paranoia proves justified when you discover fresh claw marks on trees near the nest. Another owl has been scouting your territory, probably waiting for an opportunity to attack when you're away hunting. The marks are large, suggesting an adult male, and they're recent enough that the sap is still wet. You increase your patrols and start hunting closer to home, even though the prey near your nest has been largely depleted by weeks of intensive hunting. The trade-off is clear. Stay close and provide better protection, but bring back less food, or range farther for better hunting, but leave your family vulnerable to attack. Your mate makes the decision for both of you. She starts leaving the nest for longer periods, hunting in the areas immediately around your territory, while you range farther afields. It's a risky strategy. The chicks are still vulnerable to temperature changes and small predators, but it allows you to cover more ground and bring back larger prey. The system works until the night you return from a successful hunt to find your mate missing and your chicks calling frantically from the nest. Their cries have a desperate quality you've never heard before, and when you investigate, you discover why. One of them has disappeared. The remaining chick huddles in the corner of the hollow, trembling with fear and cold. There's no sign of struggle, no blood, no scattered feathers. Your missing chick simply vanished, as if it never existed at all. But you know better. Something came while you were gone, something silent and deadly enough to take one chick without waking the other. Your mate returns an hour later with a vole in her talons, and her reaction to the loss is immediate and devastating. She drops the prey and searches every inch of the nest cavity, calling softly as if her missing chick might somehow answer. When the reality finally sinks in, She settles over the surviving chick with a protective intensity that borders on obsession. Neither of you sleeps that day. You perch at the entrance to the hollow, scanning the forest for any sign of the predator that invaded your home. Your mate stays pressed against your remaining chick, her head swiveling at every sound. The loss has changed something fundamental in both of you. You're no longer just protecting your offspring, you're trying to hold on to the last piece of your shattered family. The surviving chick seems to sense the tension. Its begging calls become more urgent, more desperate, as if it knows how precarious its situation has become. You respond by hunting with a ferocity that surprises even you. Every kill is brought back immediately, no matter how small. You can't risk being away from the nest for extended periods anymore. Your mate begins exhibiting behaviors you've never seen before. She inspects every inch of the tree trunk below the nest, searching for claw marks or scent trails that might reveal the identity of your chick's killer. She attacks small birds that venture too close, even harmless species that pose no threat. Her protective instincts have transformed into something approaching madness. The remaining chick grows rapidly under this intensive care, but its development is marked by an aggression that seems unusual even for a young owl. When you drop food into the nest, it doesn't just eat. It tears at the meat with a savagery that reminds you of yourself during the darkest moments of your juvenile starvation. It's learning that the world is a hostile place where survival requires constant vigilance and ruthless competition. By late August, your chick has developed its first real feathers and can stand steadily on its rapidly growing talons. Its eyes have sharpened from the unfocused gaze of a newborn to the piercing stare of a predator in training. When it looks at you, you see intelligence there and something else that makes you uncomfortable, a coldness that mirrors your own. Your mate begins taking the chick on short flights around the immediate area of the nest, teaching it the basics of wing control and branch landing. These lessons are brutal in their efficiency. There's no patience for mistakes, no gentle encouragement. The chick learns to fly because the alternative is falling, and falling means death. You watch these training sessions with a mixture of pride and unease. Your offspring is becoming everything an owl should be: strong, fast, deadly, and utterly self-reliant. But there's something missing from its development, some quality that you can't quite identify. It takes you weeks to realize what troubles you. Your chick shows no affection, no bond with its parents, beyond the practical necessity of learning survival skills. This emotional distance becomes more pronounced as autumn approaches. Your chick hunts with you and your mate, but it doesn't share kills or roost close for warmth. It treats you as useful teachers rather than family, and you recognize this attitude because it's exactly how you viewed your own parents. The cycle is repeating itself with mechanical precision. The first territorial challenge comes in the early September. A young male, probably from a clutch that hatched earlier in the season, drifts into your hunting grounds and refuses to leave when you warn him off. Your chick watches from a nearby tree as you engage the intruder, studying every move of the aerial combat that follows. The fight is brief but vicious. The challenger is younger than you, but less experienced, and his technique lacks the refinement that comes from surviving multiple territorial disputes. You pin him against a tree trunk and deliver a warning bite to his neck that draws blood without causing permanent damage. He flees, and you don't pursue. When you return to your perch, your chick is gone. You call for it, but there's no response. Your mate searches the surrounding trees while you expand the search pattern, both of you growing increasingly frantic as the night wears on. Just before dawn, you spot a familiar silhouette perched on the edge of your territory, watching the sunrise with apparent calm. Your chick has moved out. There was no farewell, no gradual transition. It simply decided that the time had come to claim its own territory and left without looking back. When you approach, it doesn't flee, but it doesn't welcome you either. It acknowledges your presence with a brief call and then ignores you completely. The message is clear. Your parental duties are finished. Your chick has learned everything you had to teach and no longer needs your protection or guidance. The bond between you, such as it was, has been severed with the same cold efficiency that characterizes every aspect of owl existence. You and your mate return to your empty nest and spend the day there, not because the hollow serves any practical purpose anymore, but because neither of you knows what else to do. For months, your entire existence revolved around the needs of your offspring. Now that purpose has vanished overnight, leaving behind a void that hunting and territory patrol can't fill. Your mate recovers from this transition faster than you do. Within a week, she's ranging far from the nesting area, exploring territories that have been off limits during the breeding season. She calls to you occasionally, but the sound lacks the urgency that characterized her vocalizations when the chick was still dependent on you both. You find yourself returning to the hollow repeatedly, drawn by instincts you can't fully understand. The space feels enormous now, empty in a way that goes beyond the mere absence of your offspring. Sometimes you catch yourself listening for the begging calls that once drove you to exhaustion with their constant demands. The silence that greets you feels heavier than any sound. Winter approaches with unusual swiftness, bringing early snow and longer nights that should favor your hunting. But the abundance of darkness doesn't translate into abundant prey. The forest feels different, emptier, as if the extended breeding season has depleted the small mammal population throughout your territory. Competition for the remaining prey becomes fierce. Young owls from successful clutches throughout the region are claiming territories of their own, fragmenting the hunting grounds and forcing established pairs like you and your mate to defend areas that once went unchail coexistence you enjoy-langed. The peaceful during the summer gives way to a constant state of low-level warfare. Your mate handles this pressure by expanding her hunting range, venturing into territories controlled by other predators where the competition is less intense, but the dangers are greater. You hear her engaged in territorial disputes with hawks during daylight hours, and her return flights often show signs of combat. Missing feathers, fresh scratches, the exhausted posture of an animal that has been fighting for its life. You take a different approach, focusing on defending your core territory with increasing aggression. When young owls test your boundaries, you don't just drive them off. You pursue them well beyond your territorial limits, making sure they understand that challenging you carries consequences that extend far beyond a simple defeat. This strategy works in the short term, but it carries costs that become apparent as winter deepens. The energy you expend on territorial defense is energy not available for hunting, and your body weight begins to drop as the cold intensifies. Your flight becomes labored, your reactions slow. The very aggression that protects your territory starts to undermine your ability to exploit it effectively. Your mate notices these changes and begins sharing her kills with you, reversing the dynamic that existed during the breeding season. The role reversal is temporary. You recover your strength within a few weeks, but it demonstrates how quickly the balance of survival can shift in the forest ecosystem. The harshest part of winter arrives in January, bringing temperatures that freeze the ground solid and snow deep enough to bury most of the normal prey trails. Hunting becomes a desperate struggle against starvation, with successful kills separated by days of fruitless searching. You and your mate hunt together more frequently now, not out of affection, but out of necessity. During one of these joint hunts, you encounter your offspring for the first time since it left your territory. The young owl has claimed a section of forest about 2 miles from your nesting tree, marginal habitat that no established pair wanted to defend. It's visibly thinner than when you last saw it, and its flight has that effortful quality that comes from chronic hunger. The meeting is awkward and brief. Your offspring shows no recognition of your bond, treating you as it would any other adult owl encountered on neutral ground, with wary respect but no warmth. When you make a soft call that once would have brought it flying to your side, it responds with the harsh, territorial cry of an independent predator warning competitors to keep their distance. You're struck by how completely it has adapted to solitary existence. Every movement, every vocalization, every aspect of its behavior speaks to a creature that has never known dependence and never expects assistance. It has become exactly what the forest demanded, a perfect killing machine with no emotional attachments to compromise its survival instincts. The encounter affects you more than you expected. For the rest of that night, you find yourself distracted during hunts, missing opportunities, because part of your attention is focused on memories of feeding that same bird when it was helpless and dependent. Your mate seems unaffected by the meeting, suggesting that the parental bond impacts males and females differently, or perhaps she simply processes loss more efficiently than you do. Spring arrives early that year, bringing with it the familiar restlessness that signals the beginning of another breeding cycle. Your mate begins calling more frequently, and her hunting patterns shift toward areas with potential nesting sites. The hollow where you raised your first chick is still available, but neither of you shows interest in reusing it. Too many memories linger in that space, both positive and traumatic. You scout new territories together, looking for a nesting site that offers better protection and more abundant prey than your previous choice. The search takes weeks because good nesting habitat is limited and competition from other pairs is intense. Several promising locations are already claimed by the time you investigate them. The site you eventually choose is a massive dead tree on a ridge overlooking a marshy area rich in rodent populations. The hollow is deep and well protected, with multiple exit routes in case of attack. The surrounding forest shows signs of minimal owl activity, suggesting that previous occupants either failed to breed successfully or abandoned the area for reasons you can't determine. Your mate inspects the cavity thoroughly, testing the strength of the walls and the depth of the accumulated debris that forms the floor. When she finally settles inside and begins the soft calling that indicates acceptance, you feel a familiar mixture of excitement and dread. The cycle is beginning again, with all its demands and dangers and potential for both triumph and tragedy. The mating ritual proceeds with the same intensity as the previous year, but there are subtle differences in your approach. You're more selective in your prey offerings, choosing larger and more impressive kills to demonstrate your hunting prowess. Your aerial displays are more elaborate, incorporating maneuvers you've perfected through another year of experience. Your mate's responses are also more refined. She evaluates your offerings with the discrimination of a predator who has learned to distinguish between adequate providers and exceptional ones. Her acceptance of your courtship gifts carries weight beyond simple hunger satisfaction. It's an assessment of your ability to support another breeding attempt. The first egg arrives in early April, followed by 2 more over the next week. 3 eggs represent a significant investment of energy and resources, more than your mate produced in her first breeding attempt. The larger clutch size suggests confidence in your ability to provide food, but it also triples the pressure on your hunting success. This time, you're better prepared for the demands of the incubation period. You've identified multiple hunting areas within reasonable flight distance of the nest, and you've established a rotation system that prevents overexploitation of any single location. Your efficiency has improved through experience, allowing you to bring back more food in less time. But the forest has changed since your first breeding season. Competition from other predators has intensified, and the prey populations show signs of stress from multiple years of heavy hunting pressure. What once seemed like abundant hunting grounds now require careful management to remain productive. The eggs hatch in early May, producing 3 healthy chicks that immediately begin competing for food with the same ruthless intensity you remember from your first brood. The strongest chick establishes dominance within hours, claiming the position closest to where food typically arrives and using its size advantage to intimidate its smaller siblings. History repeats itself with mechanical precision. You hunt constantly, returning with progressively smaller prey as the easily caught animals in your territory are depleted. Your mate assists when possible, but 3 chicks require more attention than 2, and her hunting opportunities are limited by their constant need for warmth and protection. The first loss occurs during the second week, when the smallest chick simply fails to compete successfully for food. It doesn't die dramatically. It just grows weaker and quieter until one morning it doesn't respond to feeding attempts. Your mate removes the body without ceremony, and the 2 surviving chicks continue their competition as if nothing had happened. You recognize the pattern from your own childhood and from your previous breeding attempt. The forest imposes harsh mathematics on owl families, and not every chick that hatches will survive to independence. The knowledge doesn't make the loss easier to accept, but it prevents you from wasting energy on grief that serves no survival purpose. The 2 remaining chicks thrive under the reduced competition, growing rapidly and developing the aggressive instincts that will serve them in independent life. By midsummer, they're large enough to accompany you and your mate on short hunting expeditions, learning to identify prey and understand territorial boundaries. These training flights reveal differences in the chicks' personalities and abilities. One shows exceptional aptitude for stealth hunting, able to approach prey with a silence that impresses even you. The other compensates for less refined technique with raw aggression, attacking prey with a ferocity that ensures quick kills even when the initial strike isn't perfectly placed. Both approaches are viable survival strategies, and you find yourself unconsciously favoring whichever chick demonstrates superior performance on any given night. Your mate seems to make similar calculations, directing more attention toward the offspring that shows greater promise. It's not a conscious decision, but rather an instinctive response to the reality that parental investment should flow toward the individuals most likely to survive and reproduce. By late summer, both chicks are capable of independent flight and basic hunting, but they show no inclination to leave your territory. The abundance of food provided by 3 adult hunters allows them to delay the transition to independence that harsh necessity forced on you and your mate during your own juvenile development. This extended family period creates new dynamics and challenges. Territory that once supported 2 adult owls now hosts 4 individuals with overlapping needs and competing interests. Prey depletion accelerates, forcing longer and more dangerous hunting flights. Territorial disputes with neighboring owls intensify, as your expanded family's activities impinge on adjacent hunting grounds. The situation comes to a head in early September when a pair of adult owls challenges your family's right to occupy such a large territory. The conflict escalates beyond simple territorial displays into actual combat, with both your chicks participating in their first real battle for survival. The fight reveals the effectiveness of your training methods. Both young owls demonstrate tactical awareness and combat skills that surprise their attackers. Working together, your family drives off the challengers with a coordinated assault that leaves no doubt about your willingness to defend your territory with lethal force. But victory comes at a cost. One of your chicks suffers injuries that, while not immediately life-threatening, will affect its flying ability for weeks. The other emerges unscathed, but clearly shaken by the violence of adult territorial combat. The battle serves as a harsh introduction to the realities of independent life in a competitive ecosystem. Within days of the territorial fight, both chicks begin showing signs of restlessness that signal the approach of dispersal. They hunt farther from the family territory, sometimes failing to return for entire nights. Their calls to you and your mate become less frequent and more formal, lacking the intimate quality that characterized their dependent period. The separation process unfolds gradually this time, without the abrupt departure that marked your first offspring's transition to independence. Over the course of several weeks, your chicks spend progressively less time in your company until their presence becomes occasional rather than constant. The final break comes during a territorial dispute with a neighboring family that has also delayed offspring dispersal. In the chaos of aerial combat involving multiple owls, your chicks simply disappear into the darkness and don't return. Whether they fled the battle or used it as cover for their planned departure, the result is the same. Your family unit dissolves overnight. You and your mate find yourselves alone again, masters of a territory that suddenly feels enormous and empty. The silence that follows months of constant chick vocalizations seems oppressive, a reminder of how quickly the focus of your existence can shift from abundance to solitude. This time, you adapt to the post-breeding transition more quickly. Experience has taught you that the empty nest period is temporary, that the restless energy you feel will eventually channel itself into preparation for the next breeding cycle. Instead of dwelling on the absence of your offspring, you focus on rebuilding the prey populations in your territory and strengthening the territorial boundaries that will be tested again when spring arrives. Your mate recovers even more efficiently, ranging widely through adjacent territories and gathering information about potential competitors and prey availability. Her scouting reports help you plan hunting strategies and identify areas where territorial expansion might be possible. The winter that follows is less harsh than the previous year, with moderate temperatures and sufficient snow cover to provide hunting advantages without creating survival challenges. Your improved territory management allows you to maintain body condition throughout the cold months, entering the next spring breeding season in optimal physical condition. The third breeding season brings a confidence born from experience, but it also reveals how the forest itself is changing around you. The marshland that once teemed with rodents shows signs of stress from years of intensive hunting. Water levels have dropped, forcing prey animals to concentrate in smaller areas where competition among predators has grown fierce. What used to be reliable hunting grounds now require careful timing and strategic patience. Your mate chooses a different nesting site this year, abandoning the dead tree that served you well for a hollow in a living oak that offers better concealment but more challenging access. The cavity is deeper than your previous nest, requiring you to squeeze through a narrow opening that barely accommodates your wingspan. Once inside, however, the space opens into a chamber large enough to accommodate a substantial brood. The courtship proceeds with rituals that have become familiar, but you notice subtle changes in your mate's behavior. She's more demanding in her assessment of your prey offerings, rejecting kills that she would have accepted in previous years. Her standards have risen with her experience, and she expects the same level of improvement from you. You adapt by targeting larger prey and taking greater risks to secure impressive kills. A raid on a rabbit warren nearly costs you several feathers when the adult rabbits coordinate their defense, but you emerge with a prize substantial enough to satisfy your mate's elevated expectations. Each successful hunt reinforces your status as a capable provider worthy of another breeding investment. The eggs arrive in late March, 4 of them this time, representing your mate's peak reproductive capacity. The larger clutch creates logistical challenges that test every hunting skill you've developed over 3 seasons of experience. 4 chicks will require more food than you've ever been called upon to provide, and the competition among siblings will be correspondingly intense. You establish hunting schedules that push the boundaries of your endurance, leaving the nest before full darkness and returning well after sunrise. Your territory expands by necessity as nearby prey becomes depleted, forcing you into marginal areas where hunting success is less predictable, but competition from other predators is reduced. The hatching occurs over 5 days, creating a size hierarchy among the chicks that virtually guarantees differential survival. The first chick to emerge claims the prime feeding position and maintains it through aggressive behavior that borders on violent. Its siblings adapt by developing different strategies: speed in grabbing food, persistence in begging, or simply staying out of the dominant chick's way. Your mate manages the nest dynamics with the same ruthless efficiency she applies to hunting. She doesn't intervene in sibling conflicts unless they threaten to damage all the chicks, allowing natural selection to operate within the confines of the hollow. Her role is to provide warmth and protection, not to ensure equal distribution of resources among offspring with varying survival prospects. The smallest chick disappears during the first week, not through predation, but through simple failure to compete. You find its body outside the nest one morning, removed by your mate as part of her housekeeping duties. The 3 remaining chicks show no reaction to their siblings' absence, continuing their competition with undiminished intensity. As the survivors grow, their individual personalities become more distinct. The dominant chick maintains its aggressive approach, but begins showing signs of strategic thinking, waiting for optimal moments to claim food rather than simply bullying its siblings constantly. The second chick develops exceptional hearing, often alerting to your approach before its siblings realize food is coming. The third chick, smallest but most agile, specializes in quick strikes that allow it to grab food and retreat before retaliation can occur. These different survival strategies fascinate you as a study in adaptive behavior. Each chick has found a niche that allows it to compete effectively, despite the intense pressure from its siblings. You begin to see parallels with your own juvenile development and the various strategies employed by other young owls you've encountered over the years. Your hunting efficiency improves through necessity, driven by the relentless demands of feeding 3 growing chicks. You develop techniques for processing prey more quickly, stripping away inedible portions before returning to the nest to maximize the nutritional value of each trip. Your knowledge of prey behavior deepens as you learn to predict animal movements with greater accuracy. The forest responds to your intensive hunting by becoming more challenging. Prey animals alter their behavior patterns, avoiding areas where you've been successful in the past. You're forced to constantly adapt your techniques, hunting at different times and in different locations to maintain adequate food flow to your growing family. By midsummer, all 3 chicks have survived to the fledgling stage, an unusual success rate that reflects both favorable environmental conditions and your improved parenting skills. They accompany you on training flights that gradually extend their range and hunting abilities. Each chick demonstrates the survival strategy it developed in the nest, adapted now to the larger stage of the forest environment. The dominant chick proves to be an exceptional hunter, combining aggression with tactical awareness in ways that remind you of your own early development. It takes risks that worry you, but pays off through spectacular hunting successes that build its confidence and skills rapidly. Its approach to territorial boundaries is similarly aggressive, testing limits and challenging other young owls with a boldness that sometimes requires your intervention. The second chick, with its exceptional hearing, develops into a specialist in detecting prey that other hunters miss. It can locate mice moving through deep grass or identify the specific sounds made by different species of small mammals. This acoustic hunting ability makes it highly effective in difficult conditions where visual hunting fails. The smallest chick compensates for its size disadvantage by developing speed and agility that allow it to exploit hunting opportunities that its siblings might miss. It specializes in pursuing prey through dense cover where larger owls cannot follow effectively. Its approach to conflict is evasive rather than confrontational, but this strategy proves surprisingly effective in avoiding unnecessary fights while still securing adequate resources. As autumn approaches, the dynamics within your family begin to shift toward the inevitable separation. Your chicks start ranging farther from your territory, sometimes engaging in territorial disputes with other juvenile owls without seeking your assistance. These conflicts serve as graduation exercises, testing their readiness for independent life. The first chick to leave is, surprisingly, the smallest one. Its departure is sudden and final, occurring after a successful hunt that seems to trigger some internal signal that independence is achievable. You find yourself scanning the forest for signs of its presence for weeks afterward, but it has vanished completely into whatever territory it managed to claim. The 2 remaining chicks show less urgency about dispersal, perhaps because reduced competition allows them to remain in your territory without overwhelming the local prey populations. Their extended presence creates a different dynamic than you've experienced in previous years, with hunting becoming a family activity rather than a parental obligation. This extended family period allows you to observe your offspring's continued development in ways that previous rapid dispersals prevented. You watch them refine their hunting techniques, establish relationships with neighboring owls, and begin the complex process of territory evaluation that will determine where they eventually settle. The dominant chick shows interest in a territory adjacent to yours, an area that was recently vacated by an older owl whose disappearance you witnessed during a territorial dispute earlier in the year. The second chick ranges more widely, exploring territories several miles from your area in what appears to be a systematic survey of available options. Winter arrives before either remaining chick commits to independence, creating an unusual situation where your family unit remains intact through the harsh months when most young owls are struggling alone in marginal territories. The arrangement benefits everyone involved, Your chicks gain additional survival experience while helping to defend the territory and secure food, while you and your mate enjoy the assistance of two additional hunters during the most challenging season. The extended family hunting parties prove remarkably effective, with four owls able to coordinate attacks on prey that might escape a single hunter. You develop tactics that exploit each individual's strengths, with the acoustic specialist locating prey, the aggressive chick making the primary attack, and you and your mate providing backup and security during the hunt. These collaborative hunts reveal aspects of owl intelligence that surprise even you. The coordination required for successful group attacks demands communication, planning, and tactical flexibility that goes beyond simple instinctive behavior. You find yourself engaged in complex problem-solving scenarios that challenge your understanding of what owls are capable of achieving. The social dynamics of extended family life also prove more complex than you expected. Hierarchies shift based on hunting success, territorial contributions, and individual conflicts that have nothing to do with size or age. Your role evolves from parent to senior partner in a cooperative venture where respect must be earned rather than automatically granted. Your mate adapts to these changed circumstances by becoming more of a coordinator than a primary caretaker. She mediates disputes between the chicks, allocates hunting territories to prevent conflicts, and maintains the social bonds that keep the family unit functioning effectively. Her leadership style is subtle but unmistakable, based on expertise rather than dominance. As winter deepens, the advantages of group hunting become even more apparent. Prey is scarce and widely distributed, making solo hunting a frustrating exercise in covering vast territories for minimal returns. Your family's coordinated approach allows you to systematically work areas that would be impossible for individual hunters to exploit effectively. The harsh conditions also create opportunities for your chicks to gain experience with survival challenges they might not encounter in milder weather. They learn to hunt in snow, to conserve energy during extended periods without food, and to recognize the signs of weather changes that can make the difference between successful and disastrous hunting expeditions. By late winter, both remaining chicks have developed into formidable hunters whose skills rival those of established adults. Their techniques are different from yours, adapted to their individual strengths and the specific challenges of their generation, but their effectiveness is undeniable. You begin to sense that their departure, when it comes, will be motivated by ambition rather than necessity. The end of winter brings subtle changes in your chick's behavior that signal the approaching end of your extended family period. They begin calling to owls outside your territory, engaging in long-distance vocal exchanges that suggest they're gathering information about potential territories and mates. Their attention shifts from family hunting expeditions to individual exploration of opportunities beyond your established range. Spring arrives with the familiar restlessness that signals another breeding cycle, but this year the transition is complicated by the continued presence of your previous offspring. The territorial and reproductive instincts that drive you and your mate toward another breeding attempt conflict with the social bonds that have developed during the extended family period. The resolution comes gradually as your chicks begin spending more time away from your territory and less time participating in family activities. Their departures become longer and more frequent until they're essentially visiting rather than residing in your area. The bonds that held your family together through winter naturally attenuate as individual interests diverge. Your mate begins showing interest in nesting sites before either chick has formally dispersed, creating a situation where breeding preparations must proceed alongside ongoing parental responsibilities. The logistics become complex as you balance territory defense, courtship activities, and the residual needs of your adolescent offspring. The final separation occurs during a territorial dispute with a neighboring pair that has also delayed offspring dispersal. In the chaos of multi-generational combat, your chicks make their choice to establish independent territories rather than continue fighting for space in an increasingly crowded family territory. Their departure is simultaneous and final, ending the extended family period with decisive clarity. You and your mate find yourselves alone again, but the experience of extended family life has changed your relationship in subtle ways. The collaborative hunting techniques developed during winter continue to influence your approach to territory management. The communication skills refined through coordinating with your chicks enhance your ability to work together on breeding preparations. Your fourth breeding season begins with a level of coordination and efficiency that reflects the accumulated experience of both individual development and extended family management. You've learned to balance the competing demands of territory defense, prey management, and reproductive investment in ways that maximize your chances of raising successful offspring while maintaining your own survival prospects. The nesting site you choose reflects this accumulated wisdom, a location that offers optimal hunting access, defensive advantages, and proximity to reliable water sources that support healthy prey populations. Your mate's acceptance of the site is immediate and enthusiastic, suggesting that her evaluation criteria have evolved along similar lines to your own. The courtship proceeds with rituals that have become refined through repetition but retain their fundamental intensity. Your prey offerings demonstrate not just hunting skill, but strategic thinking about nutritional needs and energy efficiency. Your mate's responses show similar sophistication, evaluating not just the immediate value of your gifts, but their implications for your ability to support another demanding breeding cycle. The eggs that result from this partnership represent the culmination of years of experience, genetic selection, and adaptive learning. 3 eggs, laid over 4 days, each one a concentrated investment in the future that reflects everything you've learned about survival in a competitive and unforgiving environment. As you settle into the familiar routines of incubation and early chick care, you're aware that this breeding attempt is both similar to and different from your previous efforts. The basic requirements remain the same: constant hunting, territory defense, protection from predators. But your approach to these challenges has been refined by experience into something approaching artistry. You hunt with precision, born of intimate knowledge of your territory's rhythms and resources. You defend boundaries with just enough force to deter challenges without wasting energy on unnecessary conflicts. You coordinate with your mate through subtle communications that maximize efficiency while minimizing the time either of you spends away from the nest. The chicks that hatch from your carefully tended eggs represent not just another generation, but the product of an evolutionary process that has shaped every aspect of their development. They carry genes tested by multiple generations of forest survival, instincts refined by countless life and death struggles, and the immediate benefit of parents whose skills have been honed through years of experience. But they also face challenges that previous generations didn't encounter. The forest continues to change, with prey populations fluctuating in response to complex environmental pressures. Competition from other predators intensifies as successful breeding seasons produce more juveniles seeking territories. Human activity at the edges of your range introduces new variables that require adaptive responses. These changing conditions ensure that your offspring's survival will depend not just on inherited traits and learned behaviors, but on their ability to adapt to circumstances you couldn't have anticipated when you first claimed territory as a young owl struggling to establish yourself in an unforgiving world. The cycle continues, but each iteration brings new challenges and opportunities that test the limits of what owls can achieve through intelligence, instinct, and the relentless drive to survive and reproduce in one of nature's most competitive environments. Your chicks grow with a hunger that seems to expand faster than their bodies. By the time they're 3 weeks old, they've developed the distinctive facial discs that will make them such efficient hunters, but right now those oversized faces just make them look like feathered satellites constantly scanning for incoming food. Their begging calls have evolved from soft peeping to harsh demands that echo through the forest and announce your family's location to every predator within miles. The mathematics of feeding 3 rapidly growing owls becomes brutal. Each chick needs roughly its own body weight in meat every day, and their body weight doubles weekly during peak growth periods. You find yourself hunting prey you once would have ignored, shrews barely worth the energy to catch, insects that provide minimal nutrition, even carrion when fresh kills prove elusive. Your hunting territory expands by necessity, pushing you into areas claimed by other predators. A fox discovers your scent trail near its den and begins following your movements, waiting for an opportunity to steal your kills. You're forced to cache prey in multiple locations, hiding portions of larger kills in tree hollows and returning for them when the fox isn't patrolling. The competition extends beyond ground predators. Other owl families in the area are facing the same resource pressures, and territorial boundaries that seemed stable during winter begin to shift as parents push into marginal areas seeking enough prey to feed their broods. You encounter other adult owls more frequently now, usually during tense standoffs over disputed hunting grounds that could escalate into deadly combat without warning. Your mate adapts to these pressures by becoming more mobile, leaving the nest for longer periods as the chicks develop better temperature regulation. Her hunting expeditions take her into territories you haven't explored, areas where the prey might be less depleted, but the risks are correspondingly higher. She returns with scratches and missing feathers that tell stories of conflicts you weren't there to assist with. The chicks seem to sense the increased stress in their environment. Their competition for food becomes more vicious, with the largest chick not just claiming the best feeding position, but actively preventing its siblings from accessing dropped prey. The middle chick develops a strategy of grabbing food and retreating to the far side of the hollow before eating, while the smallest learns to snatch scraps during the brief moments when its siblings are distracted. This inequality in feeding creates visible differences in development rates. The dominant chick grows sleek and powerful, its feathers developing the rich patterns that mark a healthy juvenile. The middle chick maintains adequate condition but shows signs of stress in its plumage quality and energy levels. The smallest chick begins to lag noticeably, its growth stunted by chronic undernourishment despite your increased hunting efforts. You find yourself making unconscious decisions about resource allocation, lingering slightly longer when dropping food near the smaller chicks or timing your arrivals to moments when the dominant chick is preoccupied. These subtle interventions feel like betrayals of natural selection, but they also reflect an investment in genetic diversity that might prove crucial if environmental conditions change. Your mate shows no such favoritism. Her approach to chick care remains ruthlessly practical, focused on maximizing the survival chances of whichever offspring demonstrate the strongest competitive abilities. When the smallest chick begins showing signs of serious weakness, she stops directing food specifically toward it, concentrating her efforts on the two siblings with better survival prospects. The forest ecosystem responds to the intensive hunting pressure from multiple owl families by becoming increasingly unpredictable. Prey animals alter their movement patterns, becoming more nocturnal in areas where diurnal predators are active and shifting to different foraging grounds when predation pressure becomes too intense. What used to be reliable hunting spots become empty of everything except the scent trails of animals that have learned to avoid them. You adapt by developing new techniques that exploit different aspects of prey behavior. Instead of relying primarily on vision and hearing to locate targets, you begin following scent trails and reading the subtle signs that indicate recent animal activity. Disturbed vegetation, fresh droppings, and claw marks on bark become as important as direct sensory contact in guiding your hunting strategy. The learning curve is steep, and mistakes are costly. You waste entire nights following cold trails or pursuing prey that has already been claimed by other predators. You misjudge wind patterns and approach targets from downwind, alerting them to your presence long before striking range. You overestimate your abilities and attempt kills that are beyond your current skill level, resulting in injuries that impair your hunting effectiveness for days afterward. But gradually, your techniques improve. You learn to read the forest like a complex text where every broken twig and disturbed leaf carries information about potential prey. Your approach flights become more sophisticated, using terrain features and vegetation cover to mask your approach until the final strike. Your timing improves, allowing you to coordinate attacks with your mate when she's hunting in adjacent areas. The smallest chick doesn't survive to see these improvements in your hunting efficiency. You find its body one morning outside the nest, removed by your mate as part of her ongoing nest maintenance. The two surviving chicks show no reaction to their siblings' disappearance, continuing their own competition with undiminished intensity now that resources are concentrated between fewer individuals. The death affects you differently than previous chick losses. Experience has taught you to expect some mortality during the demanding period of rapid growth, but this particular loss feels more personal because you invested extra effort in trying to ensure its survival. The failure of that investment serves as a harsh reminder that individual will cannot always overcome the basic mathematics of resource limitation. Your mate's practical approach to the loss proves more adaptive than your emotional response. Within days of the third chick's death, she has redirected her energy toward optimizing care for the two survivors. Her hunting becomes more focused, her nest maintenance more efficient, her defensive behaviors more strategically deployed to protect the offspring with the highest probability of reaching independence. The two remaining chicks thrive under the reduced competition, their growth rates accelerating as access to food improves. Their individual personalities become more distinct as survival pressure decreases and they have energy available for activities beyond basic competition. The dominant chick begins exploring the edges of the nest cavity, testing its developing flight muscles and coordination. The second chick focuses on vocal development, practicing the calls it will need for territorial communication and mate attraction. These behavioral differences suggest that your surviving offspring are already beginning to specialize for different ecological niches even before they leave the nest. The physical explorer shows signs of becoming a territorial, aggressive hunter, while the vocal specialist appears to be developing the communication skills that will serve it well in the complex social negotiations that govern owl society. Your hunting success improves dramatically with only 2 chicks to feed instead of 3. The reduced pressure allows you to be more selective in your prey choices, focusing on kills that provide optimal nutrition rather than simply grabbing whatever is available. You begin caching surplus food again, building reserves that provide security against nights when hunting conditions are poor. The improvement in your family's nutritional status has cascading effects throughout the ecosystem. With less pressure to hunt continuously, you and your mate can invest more energy in territorial defense, preventing other predators from encroaching on your resources. Your stronger defensive posture creates a buffer zone around your nest that supports higher prey densities by reducing overall predation pressure. Your chicks benefit from this improved environment in ways that extend beyond simple nutrition. The reduced stress allows their neurological development to proceed optimally, building the cognitive capacities they'll need for complex hunting and social behaviors. Their immune systems strengthen, providing resistance to diseases and parasites that might otherwise compromise their survival prospects. By midsummer, both surviving chicks have reached the size where they can accompany you on training flights around your territory. These expeditions serve multiple purposes: exercise for developing flight muscles, familiarization with territorial boundaries, and introduction to the sensory skills required for successful hunting. The training flights reveal how much your chicks have learned from observing your hunting techniques from the nest. They demonstrate understanding of wind patterns, terrain features, and prey behavior that would have taken you months to acquire through trial and error during your own juvenile development. Their head start reflects not just genetic inheritance, but cultural transmission of learned behaviors from experienced to novice hunters. Your dominant chick shows particular aptitude for the aggressive hunting style that has served you well in territorial disputes and challenging prey encounters. It approaches training exercises with a boldness that sometimes requires restraint, but its willingness to take risks translates into rapid skill acquisition and impressive early hunting successes. The second chick develops a more analytical approach, spending time observing potential prey before committing to attacks. Its hunting style emphasizes precision over aggression, resulting in fewer attempts but a higher success rate when it does decide to strike. This methodical approach suggests it will excel at hunting elusive prey that requires patience and tactical sophistication. Both chicks demonstrate the intelligence that makes owls such formidable predators. They learn from mistakes quickly, adapting their techniques based on previous failures. They show creativity in problem solving, developing novel approaches to challenges that don't match their inherited behavioral templates. They exhibit the flexible thinking that will allow them to thrive in an environment where survival depends on constant adaptation to changing conditions. As summer progresses toward autumn, your chicks begin showing the behavioral changes that signal approaching independence. They range farther from the nest during training flights, sometimes failing to return for entire days. Their vocalizations become more complex, incorporating territorial calls and aggressive displays they'll need as independent adults. The transition to independence proceeds more gradually than in previous years, perhaps because your improved hunting efficiency allows the territory to support additional hunters without immediate resource depletion. Your chicks begin hunting independently, but continue roosting in your territory and participating in family group activities when it suits their individual interests. This extended family period creates opportunities for advanced training that most owl families never experience. Your chicks learn collaborative hunting techniques, territorial defense strategies, and the complex social negotiations required to coexist with other predators in a crowded ecosystem. These skills will give them significant advantages when they eventually establish their own territories. The first serious territorial challenge to your extended family comes from a neighboring pair whose own offspring have recently reached independence. The conflict begins as a boundary dispute, but escalates when both families realize that the outcome will determine access to critical hunting areas needed to support their respective broods through the approaching winter. The battle involves 6 adult-sized owls fighting for control of territory that previously supported only 2. The combat is intense and prolonged, with alliances shifting as individual interests diverge from family loyalties. Your chicks prove their readiness for independent life by holding their own against experienced adults, demonstrating that their extended training period has produced formidable fighters. Victory in the territorial dispute establishes your family's dominance in the local area, but it also makes clear that your chicks no longer need your protection or guidance. They've proven their ability to defend territory, secure resources, and engage in the complex social dynamics that govern owl society. The extended family period has served its purpose, and natural dispersal pressures begin asserting themselves. The departure of your chicks occurs over several weeks, with each individual choosing its own timing and destination based on opportunities that align with its particular strengths and interests. The dominant chick claims territory adjacent to yours, maintaining loose social contact while establishing clear independence. The analytical chick ranges farther afield, seeking territory where its specialized hunting style will provide maximum advantage. Their departures leave you and your mate alone in a territory that suddenly feels oversized for 2 hunters. The prey populations that were stressed by intensive hunting from multiple family members begin recovering, creating abundance that you haven't experienced since your early years as a mated pair. This abundance allows you to focus energy on activities beyond basic survival for the first time in years. You and your mate engage in elaborate courtship behaviors outside the normal breeding season, strengthening pair bonds through play and mutual grooming. You explore parts of your territory that hunting pressures had forced you to neglect, rediscovering resources and opportunities that might prove valuable in future breeding attempts. The winter that follows is less challenging than any you've experienced since establishing your territory. Your refined hunting techniques, combined with recovered prey populations and reduced family obligations, create conditions approaching luxury by owl standards. You maintain optimal body condition throughout the cold months, entering the next breeding season with energy reserves that will support ambitious reproductive efforts. Your accumulated experience begins attracting attention from other owls in the area. Younger pairs seek your territory boundaries, apparently hoping to learn from your hunting techniques and territorial management strategies. Their presence creates low-level pressure that keeps you alert and engaged, preventing the complacency that might develop from too much success. You also notice changes in your own behavior that reflect your evolution from desperate young hunters to experienced territorial holders. Your responses to challenges become more measured, relying on tactical thinking rather than pure aggression. Your hunting becomes more efficient, focusing on techniques that minimize energy expenditure while maximizing nutritional return. Your mate shows similar development, her maternal instincts refined by multiple successful breeding seasons into sophisticated resource management strategies. She begins evaluating potential nesting sites months before breeding season, considering factors like prey availability, predator pressure, and environmental stability that you once assessed only during immediate courtship periods. The forest around you continues evolving in response to the complex interactions between predator and prey populations, environmental pressures, and the seasonal cycles that drive all wildlife activity. Your role in this ecosystem has shifted from desperate survivor to established apex predator whose presence influences the behavior and distribution of numerous other species. Your territory has become a stable element in the local ecological structure, a resource base that supports not only your own survival, but also contributes to the overall health of the forest community. The prey management strategies you've developed create refugias where small mammal populations can recover from predation pressure, ensuring sustainable hunting opportunities for future generations of owls. As your fifth breeding season approaches, you're no longer the inexperienced hunters who struggled to raise a single chick. You've become master predators whose accumulated skills and knowledge represent the pinnacle of what owls can achieve in a competitive natural environment. Your next breeding attempt will benefit from everything you've learned about survival, resource management, and the complex balance between individual success and ecological sustainability. The cycle prepares to begin again, but each iteration brings new challenges that will test whether your accumulated experience can adapt to changing conditions. The forest never stops evolving, and neither can you if you want to remain its apex predator. Your fifth breeding season arrives with an unusual problem: success. The territory you've carved from the forest now stretches farther than any neighboring owl can claim, encompassing prime hunting grounds that once belonged to multiple competing families. This expansion happened gradually through territorial victories and the natural abandonment of marginal areas by less successful predators. But the result is an empire that requires constant management. Your mate surveys potential nesting sites with the discriminations of a predator who has learned that location determines survival rates more than parental skill. She rejects cavities that seemed adequate in previous years, dismissing them for subtle flaws that experience has taught her to recognize. A hollow with excellent sight lines but poor drainage. A cavity with perfect protection but insufficient space for a large brood. A tree with ideal defensive positioning but signs of structural weakness that could lead to collapse during storms. The site she finally selects represents the culmination of years of learning about what makes a nest successful. It's a massive oak hollow that opens 40 feet above ground, accessible through multiple routes, but defensible from a single position. The cavity itself is deep enough to protect eggs from temperature fluctuations and spacious enough to accommodate the largest brood your territory could support. Most importantly, it sits at the center of your richest hunting grounds, minimizing the energy costs of feeding whatever offspring emerge. Your courtship displays have evolved into performances that demonstrate not just physical capability, but strategic intelligence. When you present kills to your mate, you're not just offering food, you're displaying your ability to read complex prey behavior, coordinate multi-stage hunts, and select targets that provide optimal nutrition for specific needs. A pregnant mouse carries different nutritional implications than a nursing vole. A young rabbit offers different energy returns than an adult rat. Your mate evaluates these offerings with criteria that extend beyond immediate hunger satisfaction. She's assessing your capacity to support the energetically demanding process of egg production, incubation, and chick rearing that will define the next several months of her existence. Her acceptance or rejection of specific prey types sends signals about her reproductive readiness and her confidence in your ability to fulfill the provider role that successful breeding requires. The eggs that result from this careful preparation arrive in early April, 4 of them laid over 6 days. 4 eggs represent your mate's assessment that your territory can support maximum reproductive output, a vote of confidence in the resource base you've built through years of careful management. But it also commits you to the most demanding hunting schedule of your life. 4 chicks will require roughly 16 times your own body weight in food every day once they reach peak growth rates. Your territory, abundant as it has become, will be tested to its limits by this level of resource extraction. You'll need to exploit hunting opportunities that you've been able to ignore during less demanding periods, pursuing prey in marginal areas where success rates are lower and risks are higher. The incubation period passes without the anxiety that marked your early breeding attempts. Your mate settles onto the eggs with the confidence of a predator who has successfully managed this process multiple times. You establish hunting routines that maintain her nutritional needs while building the energy reserves she'll need for the intensive period of chick care that follows hatching. But even experienced predators can't control all variables. A late spring storm brings 3 days of heavy rain that makes hunting nearly impossible. Your mate maintains egg temperature despite her own hunger, drawing on fat reserves accumulated during the pre-breeding period. You venture out in conditions that would normally keep you roosting, returning soaked and empty-taloned from hunts where prey animals have found better shelter than you can locate. The storm passes, but its effects linger in the form of flooded hunting areas and disrupted prey behavior. Animals that normally follow predictable movement patterns scatter to find dry ground, creating temporary abundance in some areas and scarcity in others. You spend days relearning your own territory as familiar hunting spots become inaccessible and new opportunities appear in previously marginal locations. Your mate's condition deteriorates during this challenging period, her body weight dropping as she maintains egg temperature at the expense of her own energy reserves. The eggs remain viable, but the stress affects her ability to produce the rich milk she'll need to feed newly hatched chicks. You increase your hunting intensity, taking risks that you'd normally avoid to ensure adequate food flow during this critical period. The first chick hatches during a brief break in the weather, emerging into a world where resource security can change overnight due to factors beyond any predator's control. Its siblings follow over the next 4 days, creating the size hierarchy that will determine their competitive relationships throughout the nest period. The largest chick claims the feeding position closest to where you typically deliver prey, while its smaller siblings arrange themselves according to their ability to compete for access. The competition begins immediately and intensifies as the chicks grow. The dominant chick doesn't just claim the best food, it actively prevents its siblings from accessing dropped prey, using its size advantage to monopolize resources. The second chick develops speed-based feeding strategies, grabbing food and retreating before the dominant chick can retaliate. The third chick learns to feed during the brief moments when its siblings are distracted by your arrivals. The smallest chick survives on scraps and timing, eating whatever the others miss or abandon. Your hunting pressure increases exponentially as 4 growing chicks demand more food than you've ever been required to provide. You hunt throughout the night and well into daylight hours, pushing your endurance to limits that affect your coordination and judgment. Mistakes become more frequent: missed strikes, poor approach angles, miscalculated distances that result in failed hunts and wasted energy. The forest responds to your intensive hunting by becoming increasingly difficult to exploit. Prey animals adapt their behavior to avoid the areas where you've been most successful, concentrating in locations that are harder to access or defend. You're forced to range farther from the nest, spending more time traveling to hunting areas and less time actually hunting, reducing the efficiency of each expedition. Your mate begins leaving the nest for short hunting trips as the chicks develop better temperature regulation, but her contributions can't match your output due to the time she must spend providing warmth and protection. The mathematical reality becomes stark. 4 chicks require more food than 2 adult owls can sustainably provide without depleting the prey base that supports your territory's long-term viability. Natural selection asserts itself through the simple mechanism of resource limitation. The smallest chick, chronically undernourished despite your increased efforts, begins showing signs of developmental problems that will prevent it from ever reaching independence. Its growth slows, its reflexes become sluggish, and its competitive ability deteriorates until it can no longer secure even minimal nutrition. You find yourself making increasingly desperate hunting decisions, pursuing prey that you know is beyond your current capabilities, or venturing into territories controlled by more dangerous predators. A confrontation with a red-tailed hawk over a shared kill leaves you with injuries that impair your flying ability for several days. An attempt to take down an adult rabbit results in defensive wounds that become infected and drain energy needed for hunting. Your mate removes the smallest chick's body from the nest without ceremony, a practical decision that concentrates available resources on the 3 siblings with better survival prospects. The death represents not just individual tragedy, but ecosystem feedback, the forest's way of enforcing carrying capacity limits that ensure long-term sustainability of both predator and prey populations. The 3 surviving chicks show immediate improvement as competition decreases and food availability per individual increases. Their growth rates accelerate, their feather development improves, and their behavioral complexity increases as energy becomes available for activities beyond basic survival. The dominant chick begins exercising its wings and practicing hunting motions. The second chick develops more sophisticated vocalizations. The third chick explores the nest cavity and tests its developing motor skills. Your hunting efficiency improves as the reduced pressure allows you to be more selective in prey choice and more strategic in your approach to different hunting opportunities. You begin building small caches again, storing surplus food against nights when hunting conditions prove challenging. The improved resource security creates positive feedback loops that support better nutrition for your entire family. The chicks reach the fledgling stage with survival rates higher than you achieved in previous breeding attempts, a success that reflects both your improved parenting skills and the superior territory you've established through years of careful management. All 3 chicks demonstrate the behavioral complexity and physical capabilities that predict successful transition to independent life. Their training flights begin earlier and proceed more systematically than in previous years, benefiting from your accumulated knowledge about what skills young owls need to develop and in what sequence. You guide them through progressively challenging exercises that build flight endurance, hunting coordination, and territorial awareness in logical progression from basic to advanced capabilities. The forest itself serves as an advanced training ground, offering opportunities to practice skills in realistic conditions while still maintaining the safety net of parental support. Your chicks learn to hunt in different weather conditions, navigate complex terrain features, and respond to the presence of competitors and predators under circumstances where mistakes carry educational rather than lethal consequences. By late summer All three chicks have developed into capable hunters with individual specializations that reflect their different approaches to survival challenges. The dominant chick has become a powerful territorial fighter, capable of holding its own against adult competitors. The second chick has refined its speed and agility into a hunting style that excels at catching elusive prey. The third chick has developed exceptional stealth capabilities that allow it to hunt successfully in areas where more aggressive approaches would fail. These specialized approaches to predation suggest that your offspring will be able to exploit different ecological niches when they establish independent territories, reducing competition between siblings and maximizing the survival prospects of your genetic lineage. The diversity of survival strategies within your brood represents a form of evolutionary insurance against environmental changes that might favor one approach over others. The dispersal process begins in early autumn, but proceeds more gradually than in previous years, with your chicks maintaining loose association with your territory while gradually expanding their individual ranges. They participate in family hunting expeditions when it serves their interests, but increasingly pursue independent activities that build the skills and knowledge they'll need as territorial adults. This extended transition period allows for advanced learning opportunities that most owl families never experience. Your chicks observe your interactions with neighboring territories, learning the complex social dynamics that govern owl society. They witness territorial disputes, mate selection processes, and the seasonal cycles that drive reproductive behavior, gaining insights that will prove valuable when they begin their own breeding attempts. The final separation occurs during a territorial challenge from a family group that includes multiple adult-sized offspring. The conflict escalates beyond simple boundary disputes into actual combat over access to critical hunting areas needed to support the approaching winter. Your chicks prove their readiness for independence by fighting alongside you as equals, demonstrating tactical awareness and combat effectiveness that match your own capabilities. Victory in this territorial war establishes your family's dominance over an expanded area that encompasses some of the richest hunting grounds in the region. But success also makes clear that your chicks no longer need parental protection or guidance. They've acquired the skills, knowledge, and confidence required to claim and defend territories of their own. Their departures occur over several weeks, with each chick choosing timing and destinations that align with their individual specializations and the opportunities available in different parts of the forest. The dominant chick claims territory that borders your own, maintaining social contact while establishing clear independence. The speed specialist seeks areas with abundant small prey where its particular hunting style provides maximum advantage. The stealth expert ranges farther afield, looking for territories where patience and precision are more valuable than raw aggression. You and your mate find yourselves alone again, but this time the solitude feels different. Your territory has reached a size and quality that represents the pinnacle of what a pair of owls can achieve through territorial expansion and resource management. The prey populations within your boundaries have recovered from the intensive hunting pressure of the breeding season and show signs of sustainable abundance that could support future reproductive efforts. Your relationship with the forest ecosystem has evolved from desperate competition to something approaching partnership. Your hunting practices now consider long-term sustainability rather than just immediate needs. Your territorial management creates refugia where prey populations can recover and expand. Your presence as apex predators maintains ecological balance by preventing any single prey species from becoming so abundant that it degrades habitat quality. The winter that follows brings challenges that test your ability to maintain this complex ecological relationship. Climate variations affect prey populations in ways that require adaptive responses from predators. You and your mate develop hunting strategies that exploit these changing conditions while maintaining the sustainable practices that support your territory's long term productivity. Your accumulated experience becomes a resource that younger predators in the area seem to recognize and value. You notice other owls observing your hunting techniques and territorial management strategies, apparently learning from your example. Your success serves as a demonstration of what's possible for owls that survive long enough to accumulate the knowledge and skills required for optimal resource exploitation. As your sixth breeding season approaches, you've achieved a level of mastery that represents the culmination of everything an owl can accomplish through intelligence, experience, and adaptive behavior. Your territory supports prey populations that could sustain ambitious reproductive efforts. Your hunting skills have been refined to levels that maximize energy efficiency while minimizing risk. Your partnership with your mate has evolved into a collaborative relationship that exploits both individual strengths while compensating for their respective limitations. But the forest continues changing in response to factors beyond your control. New predators appear in the area, bringing different hunting strategies and territorial requirements that alter competitive dynamics. Prey populations fluctuate according to complex environmental variables that even experienced predators can't fully predict or control. Human activities at the periphery of your range introduce novel challenges that require unprecedented adaptive responses. Your next breeding attempt will test whether your accumulated mastery can adapt to these changing conditions, or whether success itself has created vulnerabilities that more flexible competitors might exploit. The cycle prepares to begin again, but each iteration brings uncertainty that keeps even apex predators constantly learning and adapting to survive in an ecosystem that never stops evolving. Your sixth breeding season begins with an awareness that perfection in the forest is a dangerous illusion. The territory that seemed invincible last year now shows subtle signs of stress, prey trails that have shifted away from your traditional hunting routes, territorial markers from competing predators appearing closer to your core areas, and changes in vegetation patterns that suggest the ecosystem is responding to years of intensive management by an apex predator pair. Your mate approaches nesting site selection with a wariness that reflects this new reality. She spends weeks evaluating locations, not just for their immediate advantages, but for their vulnerability to the changing conditions you both sense but can't fully articulate. The massive oak hollow that served you so well last season now feels exposed, too visible to the increasing number of younger owls who scout your territory with bold curiosity. The site she eventually chooses surprises you, a modest cavity in a dead elm tree that offers adequate space but none of the luxury features you've grown accustomed to. When you question her choice through the subtle body language that constitutes owl communication, her response is clear. This location prioritizes concealment over comfort, survival over status. She's detected threats that your male-focused territorial awareness has missed. Your courtship proceeds with rituals that have become almost ceremonial through repetition, but underlying tensions create new dynamics. The prey you offer carries messages about resource availability that weren't necessary in previous years. A fat vole demonstrates that your hunting grounds remain productive. A lean mouse suggests that abundance can't be assumed. A rare bird kill proves that you're still capable of exceptional hunting feats when circumstances demand them. Your mate's evaluation process has become correspondingly sophisticated. She doesn't just assess the nutritional value of your offerings, she reads them as intelligence reports about the state of your territory and your ability to adapt to changing conditions. Her acceptance or rejection of specific kills communicates her confidence in your partnership's ability to navigate whatever challenges the coming season might bring. The eggs arrive in late March, 3 of them this time, instead of the 4 that marked last year's ambitious attempt. 3 eggs represent a strategic decision rather than reduced capability, your mate's assessment that current conditions favor quality over quantity in offspring production. Each egg receives more energy investment, creating chicks with better survival prospects in what both of you sense will be a more challenging environment. The incubation period reveals how much the forest has changed since your early breeding attempts. Sounds that once indicated normal predator activity now carry undertones of territorial pressure. The calls of neighboring owls seem closer and more frequent. The movement patterns of prey animals have shifted in ways that suggest predation pressure from multiple sources, not just your own hunting activities. Your hunting efficiency faces new challenges as familiar strategies prove less effective. Prey animals have learned to avoid not just your preferred hunting locations, but the entire sequence of movements that typically precedes your attacks. You're forced to develop new approaches that exploit different aspects of animal behavior, hunting at times, and in ways that break the patterns your previous success established. The forest responds to these changes by becoming more unpredictable. Areas that once provided reliable hunting opportunities now offer sporadic success that seems to follow no discernible pattern. You find yourself spending more time reading environmental signs and less time actually hunting, trying to understand how the ecosystem has evolved around your presence. Your mate leaves the nest more frequently during incubation, not because the eggs require less attention, but because her hunting contributions have become more critical to maintaining adequate nutrition. Her expeditions take her into territories you've never explored, areas where her smaller size and different hunting style provide advantages that your approach can't match. The chicks that hatch from your carefully tended eggs emerge into a world where the rules of survival are shifting in subtle but important ways. The size hierarchy that develops among them reflects not just competitive ability, but adaptive potential. Their capacity to thrive in conditions that differ from those that shaped your own development. The dominant chick shows the aggressive tendencies that have served your lineage well, but its behavior includes elements of caution that suggest it's already adapting to environmental pressures you're still learning to recognize. The second chick develops hunting instincts that seem oriented toward prey types you rarely encounter, as if its genetic programming anticipates changes in food availability. The smallest chick displays survival strategies that emphasize flexibility over specialization, suggesting adaptations for uncertain conditions. Feeding 3 growing chicks proves more challenging than the mathematics would suggest. The prey base that easily supported previous broods now requires more intensive management to maintain productivity. You find yourself implementing hunting strategies that consider long-term sustainability rather than just immediate returns, taking smaller prey more frequently rather than pursuing the large kills that once satisfied your family's needs efficiently. The competition among your chicks unfolds differently than in previous years. While the dominant chick maintains its feeding advantages, the siblings show less of the desperate competition that characterized earlier broods. It's as if they instinctively understand that their survival depends on the family unit's overall success rather than just individual competitive ability. Your hunting territory requires constant expansion as traditional areas become less productive. Each new section you claim must be defended against competitors who are themselves feeling pressure from changing conditions. The territorial disputes that once involved simple boundary adjustments now escalate into complex negotiations over access to specific hunting locations and seasonal resource areas. Your mate's contributions become increasingly critical as your extended territory proves difficult to exploit efficiently by a single hunter. She develops expertise in areas you can't effectively cover, creating a division of labor that maximizes your family's access to available resources. Her hunting style evolves to complement rather than duplicate your own techniques, exploiting opportunities that your approach would miss. The chicks grow with appetites that seem to expand faster than their bodies, but their development includes behaviors you haven't observed in previous offspring. They spend more time observing your hunting techniques and less time competing with each other for immediate feeding opportunities. Their play behavior includes elements that seem oriented toward learning complex strategies rather than just building physical capabilities. By midsummer, your territory supports 3 healthy fledglings whose capabilities suggest they'll be better adapted to challenging conditions than previous generations. Their individual specializations reflect not just inherited traits, but learned responses to the specific environmental pressures they've experienced during development. The training flights you conduct with your chicks reveal how much both you and the forest have changed since your early breeding attempts. The routes you once used for teaching basic flight skills now require advanced navigation abilities due to increased competition from other predators. The hunting exercises that once provided simple learning opportunities now demand tactical sophistication that challenges even your own abilities. Your chicks adapt to these challenging training conditions with intelligence that impresses even you. They learn to coordinate their activities in ways that maximize group hunting efficiency while maintaining individual skill development. Their approach to territorial boundaries shows understanding of complex social dynamics that you didn't acquire until years after independence. The forest ecosystem around your territory shows signs of reaching a new equilibrium in response to the accumulated effects of multiple successful predator families. Prey populations have stabilized at levels that can support the current predator density, but with little margin for additional pressure. The abundance that characterized your early territorial expansion has given way to a more carefully balanced system where efficiency matters more than raw aggression. Your chicks demonstrate readiness for independence earlier than previous offspring, not because they're more capable, but because they've learned skills that compress the typical learning curve. Their hunting techniques show sophistication that took you seasons to develop. Their understanding of territorial dynamics reflects exposure to complex situations that most young owls never experience. The dispersal process begins in late August with a territorial challenge that involves multiple owl families competing for access to prime hunting areas needed for winter survival. The conflict reveals how much the local predator community has grown and evolved since you first claimed territory as a desperate juvenile seeking any piece of forest that could support your survival. Your chicks participate in this territorial war as full partners rather than protected offspring, demonstrating combat effectiveness that matches their training and preparation. The battle serves as their graduation exercise, proving their readiness for independent life while establishing the expanded territorial boundaries that will support your family through the coming winter. Victory in the territorial conflict comes at a cost that reflects the new realities of forest life. The energy expenditure required to defend expanded territory against multiple competitors leaves you and your mate exhausted and vulnerable to the opportunistic challenges that follow any display of weakness. Your chicks recognize this vulnerability and make their choice to claim independent territories rather than continue relying on parental protection. Their departures occur simultaneously, as if coordinated by some instinct that recognizes the optimal timing for dispersal under current conditions. Unlike previous years, when offspring departed individually over extended periods, this coordinated dispersal suggests they understand that their best survival prospects lie in claiming territories before other competitors can exploit the temporary weakness created by the territorial war. You and your mate find yourselves alone in territory that has grown beyond what two owls can effectively manage without assistance. The expanded boundaries that seemed like victory now represent a resource management challenge that will test every skill you've developed over years of territorial expansion and defense. The winter that follows brings the harshest conditions you've experienced since your early years as the independent hunters. Not because of weather, the temperatures and snow levels remain within normal ranges, but because the ecosystem has evolved to a point where every resource must be earned through competition with other predators who have also accumulated years of experience and territorial knowledge. Your hunting strategies require constant adaptation as competing predators learn to counter your most successful techniques. The advantages that once made you dominant in territorial disputes become targets for younger, more flexible competitors who can exploit any predictability in your behavior patterns. Your mate adapts to these pressures by developing new areas of expertise that complement your evolved strategies while covering gaps that younger competitors might exploit. Her hunting techniques become increasingly specialized for situations where your approach proves less effective, creating a partnership that maintains competitive advantage through diversity rather than dominance. The forest around your territory continues evolving in response to predator pressure and environmental changes that extend beyond any individual predator's influence. Prey populations adapt their behavior patterns to minimize predation risk, creating hunting challenges that require unprecedented cooperation between you and your mate to overcome effectively. Your accumulated experience becomes both asset and liability in this changing environment. The knowledge that once provided decisive advantages now requires constant updating as conditions shift. The territorial boundaries that represented security now demand flexible defense strategies that accommodate the reality of equally experienced competitors. As your 7th breeding season approaches, you face the challenge of maintaining apex predator status in an ecosystem where multiple predator pairs have achieved similar levels of experience and territorial control. Your next reproductive attempt will test whether accumulated mastery can adapt to conditions where excellence has become the minimum requirement for survival rather than a guarantee of dominance. The cycle prepares to begin again, but this iteration will determine whether your evolutionary success has created the conditions for your own replacement by more adaptable competitors, or whether your accumulated wisdom can find new paths to survival in a forest where every niche has been claimed by predators as skilled and experienced as yourselves. Your 7th breeding season arrives with the weight of accumulated experience and the burden of a forest that has learned your patterns too well. The territory that once bent to your will now feels like a chessboard where every move has been anticipated by opponents who have studied your strategies for years. Your mate approaches nest selection with the methodical precision of a general choosing a battlefield, knowing that this season's success will depend more on tactical innovation than raw hunting skill. She rejects every site that follows your previous patterns, dismissing cavities that would have satisfied her in earlier years. The oak hollows that once represented security now feel like monuments to predictability. The elm snags that provided concealment now seem too obvious to experienced competitors. When she finally settles on a cavity in a lightning struck maple, you understand her logic immediately. The location offers nothing exceptional except its complete departure from your established preferences. The courtship gifts you present carry new meaning in this evolved competitive landscape. Each kill demonstrates not just hunting ability, but adaptability, proof that you can exploit opportunities that your established reputation might have closed off. A successful hunt in territory controlled by younger owls shows you can still learn new approaches. A kill made during daylight hours proves you can break the patterns that other predators have learned to counter. That final hunt becomes your last. Age and experience have made you formidable, but they've also made you predictable. A younger owl, faster and hungrier than you've been in years, challenges you over a rabbit kill. The fight is brief. Your reflexes, once lightning quick, hesitate for a fraction of a second too long. His talons find their mark, and you spiral toward the ground with wounds too deep to survive. Your mate finds you at dawn, motionless beneath the tree where you learned to hunt as a juvenile. She doesn't mourn. Owls don't have that luxury. By the next night, she's already calling to potential mates, her survival instincts overriding any attachment to your shared history. The forest moves on without pause, as it always has, as it always will. Your offspring, scattered across territories of their own, continue the cycle you began. Some will thrive, others will fall, but the patterns you established through years of adaptation and survival echo in their behaviors. Life as a horned owl might be brutal, but there's another animal out there that has it way worse.